Move on with a look at what's making headlines in the world press with Diptyque Laurent. Hi there, Diptyque.
Hi, Kat.
We're going to start off in the United States, American papers looking at what's going to happen later on with the Electoral College.
That's right, Kat. In the weeks following his election, there has been a movement calling for the Electoral College to block Donald Trump. But the Washington Post says it's pretty unlikely to happen this Monday when they vote. Yet Republican electors have been inundated with intense campaigns from anti-Trump supporters. That's what the Post is reporting. They've been urged to vote against Trump.
All right, and they've got an explainer on how the Electoral College works for anyone who's not quite sure. There is one budding scandal for Donald Trump that could impact his presidency over the next 4 years. It's to do with China and a drone.
That's right. You might remember last week that China stole a U.S. underwater drone in plain sight. On the weekend, they agreed to give it back, but they still haven't given it back yet. The Wall Street Journal says, I quote, China's behavior shows its intention to intimidate its neighbors and establish hegemony in East Asia. Now, according to the journal, the theft could actually be Chinese retaliation against Donald Trump. You might remember that Donald Trump spoke to the Taiwanese, or accepted a congratulatory phone call from the Taiwanese president, which very much angered Beijing. And it's important to note that the U.S. has for a long time followed what they call a one China policy, the idea that China and Taiwan are lumped together. And maybe Beijing now is worried that Trump will not be following this line.
Some reporters saying that Trump has put his foot in it with how he's reacted on Twitter.
Well, his reaction to that drone scandal, as you can see in this tweet on the weekend, he called it an unprecedented act, but he misspelt unprecedented, saying unprecedented. It's prompted much scorn from the Chinese press. Not surprisingly, the pro-China paper Global Times has published an editorial today saying that, I quote, Trump is not behaving as a president who will become master of the White House. He bears no sense of how to lead a superpower, and the paper can't help but mock Trump over that very flagrant spelling error, warning him also not to touch what bottom lines already exist in Sino-U.S. relations.
Yeah, those cheeky homonyms, unprecedented, presidented. He'll be looking at his dictionary from now on, I think, perhaps. Let's move on to one of the other big stories we're covering in our main news bulletins, the evacuations from Aleppo. They were interrupted. They seem to be underway once again, and it looks like the United Nations has a new deal to get some observers in there.
That's right. After frantic closed-door talks on the weekend, they finally agreed on a deal that'll be put to a vote later on Monday. In theory, as the New York Times reports, it would allow UN observers on the ground to oversee the evacuation process from Aleppo, but this would be after consultations with, quote, interested groups, which means potentially that the observers could be rejected by those on the ground. But anyhow, it is a start. We'll see later when they do vote on this.
All right, and our colleagues at France 24's Arabic language channel have been helping us out with a look through the Arab language press. It seems that some of the newspapers in the Arabic-speaking world are pretty scathing about what's going on.
Very scathing, Kat. The Lebanese paper Asafir says that the deal signed to allow the evacuation of Aleppo residents is at breaking point, especially after those convoys of buses were set to light. Asafir is pretty pessimistic, saying that the lack of respect of the ceasefire means that fighting will at some point inevitably resume. Now, the London-based Saudi paper Al Hayat is looking ahead after Aleppo at what the next big battle in Syria could be. They're saying it could be the city of Douma. Douma is on the outskirts of Damascus, and the paper says that Bashar al-Assad is determined to hold on to his power, especially his power concentrated around the capital. And Al Hayat fears that we could see fighting like in Aleppo in the city of Douma.
All right, let's just round off the press review with one last story from Australia. Now, we are, of course, in the lead up to Christmas. Many of you, I'm sure, have Christmas trees in your homes right now. But over in Australia, as with just even putting your shoes on, putting a Christmas tree in your house, not necessarily that simple, can be a little dangerous.
Well, if you're looking to kiss someone under the mistletoe this Christmas, you might want to shake out your tree first, Kat. This Melbourne woman found a metre-long tiger snake wrapped around her Christmas tree.
It just looks like a snazzy decoration, doesn't it?
It beautifully camouflages camouflaged with the rest of her tinsel decorations. As it turns out, it's one of the most poisonous snakes in Australia. So as you do, she called a snake catcher who promptly took the beast out of her home. He said, usually people are hysterical or having seizures just at the thought of having a snake, but she was pretty cool about it.
A cool yule for that lady. Thanks very much. Diptyka Love on there with our press review. And we're going to